From the Center for Agricultural Profitability at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln, this is Nebraska Farmcast. I'm Ryan Evans, and on this episode, I am glad to be joined again by Jessica Groskopf, an extension agricultural economist with the Center for Ag Profitability here at UNL. Her new article on loans for farmers and ranchers explores the different types of loans that are available, when and why to use them, and how to navigate some of the complexities that come with borrowing for your farm and ranch. That article is linked in the podcast description and on our website at cap.unl.edu. Jessica, thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me, Ryan.
As you write, loans are defined basically, they're agreements between at least two parties, and that allows money to be borrowed by one party, the borrower, from another party, which is the lender or creditor. So can you explain the three parts that a loan agreement typically has, at minimum anyway, that you write about?
Yeah, so typically we think about ourselves as the borrower and a bank as a lender, but we know that that could be some other party. Maybe you're borrowing money from a family member. So when we set up that loan agreement needs to have at least three parts. The first part is the principal, which is the amount of money that you are borrowing. So if I'm buying a piece of equipment, it costs $10,000. That principal would be that $10,000 that I'm borrowing. Then we would need to know what the term is. So that term is the second part of the agreement. And that term is the length of the loan. So again, going back to the piece of equipment example, if it's a 5-year loan, the term would be 5 years. The final component that loan agreement needs to have is the interest rate that we are being charged for borrowing that money. And that interest rate depends on quite a few things, but usually it's based off of what other loans are going for. And so that interest rate is the fee that we pay to borrow that money. So again, those three parts are the principal, the term, and the interest rate.
Great. And when it comes to operating loans, can you speak about their importance for farmers and ranchers, and then just kind of explain their purpose and terms that might be unique?
Yeah, so if we think about an operating loan, honestly, it functions like a credit card, but it has some advantages over using a traditional credit card when it comes to business expenses. So an operating loan is a short-term loan. Usually the term of that loan is less than 1 year. And what we're using is to cover our cash flow. So we know as farmers and ranchers, there are times of the year that we just frankly don't have enough money to maybe buy seed or fertilizer or feed. So we can get an operating note from our lender that allows us to say, hey, we're short on cash. We're going to borrow from that operating note. Then when we have cash come in, let's say in the fall we sell calves or we sell grain, we can then pay that loan back. So basically what happens in an operating loan is I borrow, and as soon as I have income, I start paying it back. So within the term of that operating note, I can borrow and pay back that loan as many times as I want to, typically. So that's really the benefit of using an operating note. Works like a credit card, but unlike a credit card, typically it has a lower interest rate. So that's why we like to see farmers and ranchers have operating notes rather than credit cards that are used in the same manner.
And you talked about the ebb and flow of the financial year for many farms and ranches. Are there other situations when it makes more sense than others for farm and ranch businesses to use a loan?
So loans are most often used when someone does not have enough money to purchase something right now. So we'll use that loan and say, okay, rather than using my own money, I'm going to borrow this money and purchase that item for use in my business. However, sometimes it's advantageous for us to think about the cost of the loan versus what our other money in our business is doing. So let's say the current interest rate is at 5 or 6%, but I have money invested, let's say, in the stock market that's earning between 8 and 10%. In that scenario, it might be advantageous for me to take the loan and utilize the money from the bank rather than taking my cash out of that investment. And so that can be an interesting thing as we're discussing loans, that there's this difference between the cost of money and the opportunity of money that's out there. Now we're getting to a scenario where that interest rate and are coming up, and so the cost of borrowing money is more expensive. So right now we really need to look at those relationships more closely and determine what is the better use of our money. Should we be borrowing money, or should we be using our own um, money that's in some other form of an investment?
Yeah, and when somebody goes to apply for a loan, how can they prepare best to increase their chances of getting the loan and know what the lender will be looking at in their application?
So there's several things that a lender is going to be looking at when you come in. So before you even step into the bank, you need a balance sheet, a cash flow, and probably an income statement. You also might need to be ready to provide your credit history as well as your tax returns. So when the lender sees these documents, what they're looking for is the health of your business when they're looking at the balance sheet. The cash flow budget will show them how much money you intend to borrow and how you intend to pay it back. The credit history shows your credit worthiness, and the tax returns will help them understand whether or not your business is profitable. So preparing those documents ahead of time will help that lender know that you are ready for that loan and that they have the information that they need to be able to make a determination of whether you are someone that they want to lend money to.
Great. And another big part about securing a loan, collateral comes into play, right? So you write about this in your article. Can you talk about the significance of collateral, how it impacts loan terms and interest rates? Well, sorry, let me back up. It probably doesn't impact interest rates, does it?
Probably not.
Okay. Can you talk about the significance of collateral in securing a loan and then how it impacts the loan terms?
So for most business loans, they're going to require what they call collateral to make a secured loan. So collateral are traditionally those assets that you're guaranteeing that loan with. So for example, if I go and I buy that piece of equipment, right, on a loan, they're using that piece of equipment to secure the loan. So that's a really interesting thing, and that a lot of farmers and ranchers are cautious of is knowing what items are securing that loan or are used as collateral for that loan. Because what happens is, let's say that we're unable to pay that loan, that lender has the right to that asset. And if you don't pay your loan, they can basically liquidate that asset. They can sell that asset to pay off the rest of your loan. So they're very, very cautious and very aware of what is being used to secure each loan. Now, the other thing is that a lien may also be placed on that collateral until the loan is paid. And that lien is a legal claim or right that the lender has over that specific asset or property. So liens are recorded in the public record, like at your county clerk's office, and they allow a lien allows a potential buyer or creditor to know that there's already a lien on that property. So very important to understand what is being used as collateral and whether or not a lien is being placed on that item if it is being used as collateral. One of the biggest misconceptions that I see when it comes to collateral is someone will say, well, if I list it on my balance sheet, then it will be used as collateral against that loan. And that's not necessarily the case. The items that are being used as collateral are listed on the documents, on the loan documents. And so go back and review what has been listed. Just because it's on your balance sheet that the banker is seeing does not mean it's being used to secure that loan. So there's a difference. So you should be listing all of your assets on your balance sheet and then reviewing what assets are being used to secure the loans.
It's good advice, but you want all the cards on the table. It doesn't mean they're going to come after all that, right? So in contrast to these secured loans that you've been talking about, you touch in your article on using unsecured loans and credit cards, as you talked about before, for paying operating expenses. So what do you want people to remember about using unsecured loans or credit cards?
Yeah, so an unsecured loan doesn't have that collateral that is backing the loan. So in that case, because there's a higher risk that you may default or not pay that loan, they will use a higher interest rate on those unsecured loans. So again, know whether your loan is secured or unsecured, and that will also make a difference in the interest rate.
And just to close out, is there anything else that you want to touch on just to get out there about or reiterate about the importance for farmers and ranchers, what they should understand when it comes to the terms of a loan, like down payments, interest rates, or repayment structures?
I think all of those points are key points when you're looking at a loan. So if you're going into a traditional bank, you really want a loan officer that you know, that you like, and that you trust, and that will walk you through all of those little details about that loan because it can really make a big difference. And it's really important that we understand exactly what we're getting into as we accept these loans or as we take on these loans. For example, down payments are something that often come up with new and beginning producers. And that is a scenario where they're not always going to allow you to borrow the full amount that you need. They're going to want you to have basically a difference between the value of the asset and the amount of the loan. And oftentimes we use a down payment to create that difference. So if you're a new producer and you're walking into a bank for the first time, make sure you understand what that expectation is.
Great information today from Jessica Groskopf, Extension Agricultural Economist with the Center for Agricultural Profitability here at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. And you can read more in her new article on loans for farmers and ranchers on our website for the Center for Ag Profitability. That is at cap.unl.edu. Jessica, thanks for your time.
Thanks, Ryan.
Nebraska Farmcast is a production of the Center for Agricultural Profitability at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. For the latest research-based information and education resources to manage your farm or ranch operation, visit our website at cap.unl.edu. That's cap.unl.edu.